welcome back to Right From the Kickoff. I'm your host, William Bayless, and as always, we're joined by the one and only Joe Wright. How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. First, obviously, opening weekend, really exciting stuff, some really good games, and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, and there's lots of interesting talking points. But before we do, you know the drill. As ever, we're going to introduce our socials. So we've just been uploading a lot onto TikTok. So check us out from there. It's Right From the Kick, because we couldn't fit in the whole lot. And you'll have to find us on there and look at all our latest videos. Obviously, follow us also on Twitter, Facebook, and Twitter. And Instagram, I should say. So, Joe, shall we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, first of all, the first game week, Crystal Palace, Arsenal. Now, I guess this prediction 100% right. 2-0 to Arsenal. I think Arsenal are going to do well this season. I was particularly impressed with Zinchenko, and particularly in that first half, Arsenal with it, really, couldn't they? They let Palace onto a little bit in the second half, but it was Arsenal's all day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and Arsenal were very good. Obviously they lost to Crystal Palace last season, so it was always going to be interesting to see what happened on the opening day. They looked very, very good. I have to say, two players in general that impressed me the most for Arsenal were the Man City rejects in Zinchenko and Jesus. I think obviously you look at it and they just looked a class above, and they're really what took the game away from Crystal Palace. And I have to say, I'm really happy I made the call with my fantasy football team. But Saliba as well, he looks one quality centre back.
He does. He looks hungry for it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does. Really does. It's not a surprise, though, because if you've been following French football, you'll know how much of a beast he is and what he's capable of. So it doesn't really surprise me, to be honest.
Exciting times for Arsenal. But Palace, obviously, first game of the season, anything could happen. But how do you think their season will go forward?
I think, to be honest with you, mate, I think it's going to be mid-table at best for Crystal Palace. But I think that's what we kind of predicted going in. I think they're a very good team, playing more expansive football, obviously, since Vieira took charge. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But on paper, pretty much every season you'd expect Arsenal to win this game, so it's not really a surprise.
Yeah, but last season though, Palace did sneak a draw in, didn't they? So
well, they snuck a draw and they also beat them at home, which was obviously the same fixture as last season. So it's, they had more points, and obviously it was a difficult one for Arsenal. But I'm just saying, the neutral would expect Arsenal to win that one.
yeah, and particularly this season with the new signings, I think they'll do well. I think I'm happy with my prediction for Arsenal. I think they'll do well.
I have to say though, I think just going quickly on to Crystal Palace again, I think they'll miss Conor Gallagher this season,
100%.
from what I've already seen.
Yeah, 100%. I think it'd be a big blow. So let's move on to now. Mitrovic, we were saying he won't be able to do it in the Prem. 2 goals against Liverpool. Do you think this could be the season for him?
It's difficult to tell. It's a weird one. He was very, very dominating. Very, very good game. We were wrong in terms of kind of how we thought this prediction would go, both of us. I mean, we all thought that Liverpool would romp home to a win. But no, I think it's different over a 38-game season. I might be wrong, but I still don't think Mitrovic is going to break more than 15 goals, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely get more than 10 now.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hedging my bets with 15, to be honest. I was going to say 10, but then hedging my bets. But no, really impressive Fulham. Came with the game plan and executed it to perfection. I think Liverpool will actually be feeling lucky with the draw, to be honest.
There was a big penalty shout where Mitrovic won a penalty. Do you think it was a penalty for you?
Yeah, it was. 100%. You can't dangle your leg in the box like Van Dijk did. I feel like again, in this day and age, you're probably talking 5-10 years ago, maybe up for question. But especially with the skill that Mitrovic used, he drew the contact out of Van Dijk. So for me, it was a penalty.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I can say it's 50-50 for me. I can see it given either way. What happens obviously first game of season, like we said before. There's always time. You can't win the title, but you can lose it, and anything could happen going from now. Next game, 2 Villa 0. Now this is another promoted team from the Championship, Bournemouth winning quite surprisingly. Do you think this puts pressure on Steven Gerrard going forward? Because after the game, we also saw this starting line to say he had exactly the same win rate than with Gary Neville when he was at Valencia, and we all know how that went. Do you think he's been overrated so far at Villa?
I do. I actually do. Yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, want him to do well. So you kind of go in with it with rose-tinted glasses. And I actually think when you look at his results, obviously 35%, which, by the way, was the stat before the game. So actually, it's lower than Gary Neville at this point, because obviously they went on and lost the game. So it'll probably be something like 34% point whatever. But yeah, it's lower. And I wasn't defensively. They were poor. I mean, the second goal, I believe, from O'Keefe, sort of long throw into the box. They just didn't deal with it. They were so poor defensively, Villa, and newly championship side coming up to the Prem, high full of confidence, took advantage of that, and I think that's what championship sides, again, we know Bournemouth now aren't a championship side, of course, but championship sides are very, very physical, and obviously with O'Keefe up front, Bournemouth have always got that, but Villa just didn't deal with it on the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, moving on to Leeds versus Wolves, 2-1 Leeds. I think that was a bit of a shock for me because I think we all expected, well, a 2-2 draw, but I think I thought if one team were going to win, it would be Wolves, but Leeds snuck it 2-1.
Yeah,
How do you think their season's going forward? Is that a bit of a shock?
I think obviously we all have our predictions, but let's be honest, Will, and I mean I know you'll know this anyway, but obviously you can't really categorize how somebody's season's going to go off one game of data. Do you know what I mean? There'll be teams that will have lost in the first game week who have terrific seasons. There'll be teams that have won in the first game of the season that potentially could get relegated. Do you know what I mean? So you can't go off 1 week. It's always nice to get off to a good start. It's important to get off to a good start. But just a reminder that in the 2007, 2008 season, when Derby were in the Prem, they got one win
11 points.
They got one win all season, and I think that they got obviously 8 draws. One of those draws came in the first game. So
exactly. So anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and I just feel like you got to take it with a pinch of salt for sure. I mean, are we expecting Liverpool to struggle this season? Absolutely not. So, and they had a bad result for them.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. Now, moving on to a team full of confidence, Newcastle United. Now, they've made some really, really good signings, and obviously full of confidence against a shell-shocked Forest. Now, a bit about this before you can have your opinion, Joe. But
of course,
we've signed so many players, and it showed. I know we said that we had no choice because we didn't. We had to sign these players, but I think given the Qatar World Cup being and pushing our season forward, we've had even less time than normal for teams to develop over the preseason. So I don't think that comes to hurt Forest, but Newcastle's always a tough side to go, especially the first game of the season. It was a sellout. It was packed. The Geordies worked for it, and Forest barely got out of their own half, I'm being honest. But 2-0, it could have been a lot worse, but build a little bit now, particularly with some a few more signings, some quality signings going forward. And just go back to, we did know these signings, but even now we still need more because we're still playing a few youth players on the bench because we have no choice because of a 5 sub rule. So we have 7 subs, which we didn't have in the Championship. We need the extra squad depth.
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously I wouldn't be pressing the panic button just yet.
No,
Obviously, I know that's exactly what you're saying. You know, you've got to bring in new signings, and I mean, I think we're going to get more of a taste of what Forest are about. Obviously, this weekend coming up when they face West Ham at home.
I'll be there.
Yeah, of course you will. And the reason for that is I just feel like that's where you're going to get most of your points. It'll be interesting to see what kind of bounce your crowd, because I know I've been to Forest. You know, I've been there as a Leicester fan, and I've been there just to watch them. Obviously, as you know, my dad's a Forest fan.
Yeah.
So obviously I've been a few times and stuff, and the bounce you get off that stadium. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I feel like you're going to get more of an idea of how Forest are going to perform after this weekend rather than the last, because as you stated before, Newcastle will be pushing top 8, top 7 this season. For me personally, you know, we know what they're about. They've got a lot of money with the new owners and stuff. So they're in a different league to a lot of teams now that they were in the same league with last season. So I wouldn't really panic too much. And I think like you pointed out as well, you got to look at the fact that although Newcastle have made a lot of signings, the core of their team is very much the same. Whereas if you look at what Forest had last season in the Championship that helped them get up, you know, they lost 5 key players, and obviously they've lost a few to, you know, wanting to get out in terms of everything else as well, going to other teams. So I think it is going to take time for them to gel. You just hope it's not going to come too late for them, because obviously the Premier League can be more unforgiving than the Championship, as you know.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we can at least get a point against West Ham going forward, but it'll be a tough game.
Just to get a mark would be nice, won't it, really, this weekend? Let's see what happens.
Just to get out there in half, really. Moving on to Spurs versus Southampton. Now, Southampton actually went forward with a sublime goal by Ward-Prowse, and then Spurs just ran away with it, and you thought, one of those 4 goals has to be Harry Kane. But he always has a slow start to every season, but Spurs look good this season, don't you think?
Well, I mean, they've made good signings, as we pointed out. They've got a manager they've finally got a manager for me who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Who knows what he's doing, and the club have backed him with transfers. Like, that's how you know if Daniel Levy's backing a manager with transfers, he knows he's the real deal. Genuinely, I'm not saying Spurs are going to win the league, but genuinely, I think they'll achieve top 4, as we've both said. I mean, they were fantastic.
We both said third, haven't we?
Yeah, they were fantastic, and not only that, I feel like they're in with a shout of getting a trophy this season, whether that be the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, or even a long shot for the Champions League. But you know what? Why not? They've got, in my opinion, got a world-class manager, and if you look at it, the 3rd best in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can't argue with that, really. Chelsea fans might argue, but you know, we'll see how they finish this season.
Yeah, of course.
Moving on to a bit of a dull game. I thought this game was a bit dull. Everton versus Chelsea finished 1-0 to Chelsea. I watched the first half and I just couldn't carry on watching, and I was so excited for a Premier League. I just thought it was so drab, and obviously we want to wish the Everton player all the best, because that was a horrific injury to his ankle. But
yeah,
1-0 to Chelsea. How do you think it went? Everton didn't look great, did they?
To be honest, I think if I'm an Everton fan, I'm looking at that, and obviously they've made a key signing this week in Connor Cody, which obviously we'll talk about a little bit. But I think they just I don't fancy them all, because for me, yes, it was 1-0, but realistically, they didn't offer a lot going forward, and it just felt like they were trying to keep those floodgates shut.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I think that's why it was 1-0. They were very defensive, and they set up to be defensive, and they ended up losing 1-0. You kind of thought as soon as Chelsea went 1-0 up, you didn't really feel like it was going to go any other way than a Chelsea win, and it sort of proved to be. I thought the one thing I will say about the match, because I watched the whole game, I was actually around at your brother's, Will.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was. And we watched the game, and I have to say, who impressed me, and he always does continue to impress me, Raheem Sterling. I'm actually quite a big fan of his.
So
and
underrated. People love to slam him, but the positions he gets in is just
I mean,
great.
you look at where he positioned himself in the Euros. You know what I mean? It was great, but he had a good game for me, and honestly, I can't believe Man City have let him go to a rival, no less. But it just shows the quality that Man City have, that they feel safe.
And the depth, yeah,
that they feel safe enough to let him go. But yeah, no, I agree with you though completely. The game itself was rather dull, and it was very much controlled and waiting. As there wasn't a lot of chances at all. And as soon as Chelsea got in front, they were always going to win. I'd be worried for Everton this season, and I'm worried if I'm an Everton fan for sure.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Moving on to your boys, Leicester versus Brentford now. You actually went 2-0 up and then 2 late goals. What did you make of that one, Joe? Because I bet you. I know I spoke to you and you said you would have taken a draw, but the manner of which it happened is always a painful one, isn't it?
I watched the game. I actually managed to watch it. I will not be divulging how, but I managed to watch it. And to be honest, mate, you could always sense it. To be honest, I think the key aspect, and we're going to go into Brendan Rodgers here a little bit, because for me, this one wasn't down to the players. It was down to the management and the fact that we only used one of our substitutions. After 60 minutes, Maddison had a good game. Dewsbury Hall had a good game, and Dewsbury Hall was my man of the match, by the way. He scored an absolute curler of a goal for the second goal right after half time. I just felt like taking Dewsbury Hall off, best player who had the energy to stay on, and not take Maddison off, who was blowing. He was blowing. It was 27 degrees on Sunday, and obviously, first game of the season, you're going to get people who aren't quite match fit, even though you've done pre-season. We know that the Premier League's is more high impact than the pre-season games. So I just felt like, when you've got players like Perez, you've got Perret, you've got Pratt, you've got Daka on the bench, you've got Iheanacho on the bench, you've got other players that can come on and make a difference. I know our squad depth could be slightly better, but I just felt like you've got the players for me who can come on and do a job, especially for like the last 20 minutes. And he just didn't utilise that, and that it cost us in the end. Personally, we had Southampton on the bench, who he could have taken out for Fofana or Evans. Evans is just coming back from a long-term injury, so all of that plays in. But again, I think he'll learn, and he'll know that he can utilise his players. He'll be talking to his coaching staff this week, and I'm hoping it changes. But overall, if you'd have said to me on the day, would you take a point just to get off the mark, I'd have said yes. But how it transpired, I was very disappointed in the end.
Yeah, and if you're a Brentford fan as well, you actually put them in the bottom three now. Would you have changed that after watching them first game?
Actually, very high energy. Substitutions made the difference. De Silva, new signing for them, scored a lovely effort for his second goal. Our defence went to sleep, and he was just able to tuck it onto his right and curl it round Danny Ward. But just going on to Danny Ward, I think he had a terrific game, by the way. He couldn't do anything about the goals, and actually from the corners, he was very, very good and commanding his area. So I actually think we're going to concede fair few corners this season rather than last, which is positive going forward. But on Brentford, no, I think they got it spot on last half an hour. Made the substitutions, could see we were tiring, and fair play, they deserved the point.
Yeah, 100%. Now let's move on to Manchester United versus Brighton now. 2-1 to Brighton, it finished. Man United didn't get out the blocks at all well, did they?
They really didn't, mate. And I'm sure. Did you watch this game? Because I did.
I did, yeah.
if I'm a Man United fan, I'm tearing my hair out at the moment. I've got to be honest with you, Will. Right, take away the fact they're Man United. If they weren't Man United, I would genuinely be fearful that they'd be dropping into the bottom half, maybe even worse this season. I just don't see the passion. I feel like the players are letting. You can't blame Ten Hag for this. It's the same players that have let down the last 4 or 5 managers.
Yeah,
It's not the management at this point.
I think you have to look at overall management of the whole club. I don't mean the manager itself. I mean the ownership as well. Because
I don't know what they're doing, mate. I really don't.
They think they can do what they want. When they had Sir Alex Ferguson, every player respected him. Now it's like if you get who's like homeschooled all his life, he's so sheltered, and then he's allowed out when he's older, and they go wild. They have no control anymore, do they?
No, well, I just feel like you can tell the players' body language. You know, they've got.
There's no respect, is there?
There's no respect, and I'm sorry, right? I'm going to call him out because I understand he's one of the greatest players we've ever seen and probably will ever see. But I don't care who you are. Your manager's your manager, and I just feel like you could see a slight bit disrespect from Ten Hag. You know, from Ronaldo to Ten Hag. I'm sorry, he's your gaffer. If you're a self-proclaimed professional like all of these Man United players are, surely you're going to be listening and trying to carry out what he's doing. And I just feel like the players are letting them down. And I've got to be honest. I can't believe I'm going this passionate rant about United because I'm not a massive fan of the club, but I just think the club is in turmoil, and it's disappointing to see. But I also think McTominay and Fred should not be wearing Man United shirts.
McTominay, I'm sorry, is so overrated.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't get in the Leicester squad, mate. They genuinely wouldn't. I would not take McTominay or Fred over Tielemans or Ndidi at this time. I would not.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're the middle two for United, and it's been the same concoction that's just getting worse and worse and worse. Yeah, I just if I'm in that back four, I would not trust them. And I have to say, for me personally, on Sunday, Maguire was one of Man United's better players.
Yeah, I'm not saying something.
I mean, it was just.
And also, what's up to De Gea? He's like filling all sorts of the balls. He looks a shadow of him for himself. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, he was getting a lot of hate anyway. So all the De Gea haters now are loving it because they've got a point. I think it's just that team's rotten to the core.
Yeah, I think they need a major overhaul, don't they?
And the
From
types
top
of players,
to bottom.
the types of players they're looking at getting in. I mean, it's embarrassing. If I'm a Man United fan, they had a 7.5 or an 8.5 million pound bid for Arnautovic rejected by Bologna, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, what is happening?
He's a massive downgrade on Cavani, who wasn't good enough. Let that sink in.
Yeah, but on the plus note, for Brighton, I think it's going to be a real positive season for them. I think they're going to continue build on what we did last season, and they look a real threat going forward, don't they? Graham
Potter has had our respect for basically since he came into the league from Swansea, obviously. Such a good manager. Guess his players playing well, and they are a team that is maybe by name and not exactly amazing, but they are a team that works for their manager. They are a team that works for each other, and it just shows if you work together as a unit, doesn't matter what you look like on paper, you can play some brilliant stuff, and Brighton do that.
Yeah.
Because they follow everything to the T. He lets them go and express themselves. Danny Welbeck, proper good performance, and I do find that quite ironic because actually I think United would have preferred to have him up front than anything else they had on Sunday. Brilliant performance, but it's just everybody seems to enjoy their football at Brighton.
Yeah, it's always such great football, and they're just so fluid as a team, aren't they? And moving on to
let's hope they can keep scoring goals. Let's hope they can keep scoring goals.
Moving on to a team who's always really fluid, Manchester City. Now, only finished 2-0. Haaland broke the deadlock. 2 goals. A whole lot more, I think.
Yes, mate. I did. If anyone's interested, head over there. Do a little bit of a summarisation of Haaland's performance against West Ham. He looks frightening, mate. He looks frightening.
Do you think he's the missing piece of the jigsaw what Man City's been missing since Aguero left?
Yes, I think he is. I think he's the missing piece of the jigsaw in terms of the Champions League. I don't think that, obviously, they don't have a missing piece of the jigsaw in terms of the Premier League. They've won 4 out of the last 5, or 3 out of the last 4. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think, I have not seen a player that the acceleration he's got and the runs he makes doesn't matter.
The power, the raw power.
If you see that, if you're a defender against him, you're like, why am I even bothering? Because even if you see the run, I can be the best defender in the world. You can see what's about to happen, but if he's faster than you, you're done. You're toast.
What can you do?
And he should have got a hat-trick on Sunday. Honestly, he will score a bag load of goals because it's not the first one that he took. Obviously, it was a penalty, but that was acceleration, breaking through the lines, and then winning a penalty off the goalkeeper because of his sheer pace. But then the acceleration for De Bruyne to just find that ball through, and De Bruyne is going to find him day after day, week after week.
Yeah.
Once they get this is them rusty, mate. This is
scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't see anybody touching them this year. And I know I put Liverpool at the top, but I have to say I cannot see Man City being toppled this year. To be honest, not after what I saw on because.
Let's just hope Haaland can stay injury-free because I know in the recent years he had some injury issues, hasn't he?
He has, yes, and we'll just see what happens. But if he can get a full season, we're probably talking 40 or 50 goals in all competitions. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, it's that scary. Now that's the first game week done and dusted. So there's a lot of talking points now which we touched upon. So let's move on to our predictions for the next game week. So we're going to run through because that took us a bit longer than we expected. So we'll just quickly go through our predictions. So first of all, it's Villa versus Everton.
I'm going to go. It's a difficult.
It's a tough game, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think both teams will struggle.
I think I'm going to go 1-1. I think it'll be a draw.
Oh, I know Villa hasn't started that well, but I think it's going to be 2-1 to Villa. Now, moving on to Arsenal versus Leicester. Because I think it can only go one way.
What did you say, mate? Sorry.
Arsenal versus Leicester.
Oh, sorry. Are you just asking me what my prediction is?
Yeah.
I'm going to go, and this is me. This is me genuinely not saying it as a Leicester fan. I just think I'm going to go 4-1 Arsenal.
You can't be good, and I think it'll be 3-1 Arsenal. So I think we both agree on that one. Now, Brighton, Newcastle. I think this will be an entertaining game. Actually, 2 fluid sides. I think it go either way. What are you thinking, Joe?
Sorry again. Newcastle and Brighton, is it?
Yeah.
It's difficult because both teams had good opening weekends. Is it at Brighton?
Yeah.
I'm still going to go. I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle. I think Newcastle will have too much for them.
I'm going to go
very
2-2.
difficult one to call.
Yeah, I think it will be 2-2. Moving on to Man City, Bournemouth.
3-0 Man City, and that's being kind. I'm going to stick with that 3-0.
I'm going to go. I'm sorry, Bournemouth fans. I just think they're just going to be way too much. Southampton, Leeds. What are you thinking, Joe?
Do you know what? I think I'd have gone for a draw after the first game week, but I really didn't like what I saw from Southampton, and I did like what I saw from Leeds. So I'm gonna go 2-0 Leeds.
Leeds. I'm going to go 1-1. That's how I think it'll finish.
Cool.
Wolves, Fulham.
Again, it's difficult because I'd have had this different game week 1. I think Fulham will struggle to break Wolves down more because they're not going to be sort of like constantly on the attack like Liverpool were. I'm gonna go 1-1 on this one.
1-1. I think Fulham might snatch us, actually. I think it's going to be 2-0.
Fair
away
enough.
from home.
Fair enough.
Bramford, Manchester United. What are you thinking, Joe?
2-0 Brentford.
2-0 Bramford.
2-0 Brentford.
I think it might be a draw, I'm going to go 1-1.
That's not even a tongue-in-cheek result either. I think Man U are just poor. I think there's going to be calls for the manager's head already by some fans.
I agree. Now moving on to my boys, Forest versus West Ham. I'm going to go this time. I think it's going to be a smash and grab 1-0 Forest.
I think it's going to be 3-1 West Ham.
Let's be real. Chelsea Spurs. This is going to be a good game.
Chelsea Spurs. I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs.
2-1 Spurs. I'm going to go 2-0 Spurs. I think it might just be too much, but Chelsea are at home, so anything could happen. Moving on to Liverpool Palace.
Liverpool Palace. Liverpool will need to fight back, and I think we'll see Núñez in the starting lineup. There's no way he can't play after his performance against Fulham, because even though that's one shining light for Liverpool, is Núñez had a game.
He just looked good.
Slightly different striker to Haaland, as I've said in that video. But I'm gonna go 2-0 Liverpool.
I think it's going to be 3-0 Liverpool. Now those are our predictions. And Joe, over to you.
Right. Well, as we know, we're at the stage for Joe Ask Will Tells. Literally, mate, all I want is give me 3 of each best and worst transfers this summer so far.
Oh, that's going to be a tough one without looking at it. Number 1 for 3 of the best ones. Look anywhere else other than Haaland. I think it was unreal business for me. Well, I think he'll be a revelation for Liverpool once he gets. He's obviously scored the first game week, but I think he'll get into his drive a bit more, and I think he'll kick off. Finally, I think Damsgaard for Brentford. I know they've only just signed it, but I think he's going to be key and the missing piece since Eriksen's left.
Yeah, I think he's
Manchester United. Those are my top 3.
He's like a Amazon, kind of like a knockoff of Eriksen, isn't he?
Saying because they're both from Denmark.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
How about your top 3, Joe?
My top 3 has to be Haaland, for sure. I think he's fantastic from what I've seen. Obviously, everyone knew about him anyway at Dortmund. It was kind of where he was going to go. Obviously, it's great to have him in the Premier League. I'm going to go for Jesus for Arsenal. I think in terms of what Arsenal were able to get, considering they're in the Europa League, brilliant striker, and I was really impressed with him, especially in the first half against Crystal Palace. I know he didn't score or assist, but I was impressed with what I saw. And I'm just trying to pick my favourite Leicester signing. Oh wait, hang on a minute. And you know what? I think not necessarily the best, but I think one of the most surprising transfers is Lingard.
Yeah.
For Forest.
Do you think he'll do well for you?
Yeah, I think he might do. I think from what I've seen of him at West Ham and everything, he could potentially do well. Okay, 3 of your worst.
This is going to be interesting though, because I'm just having a look now through it and just to see, because I think it's always hard to tell when they first sign. Obviously, Lingard could be a hit or a miss. We're still waiting on that one. We're still waiting in deaf ears to see how it'll be. So that because be positive about Forest and going forward. Just in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, it can be anywhere, mate. Can be anywhere. We're not just a one trick pony. Although the podcast is all going to be Premier League, so we are kind of. But you can go anywhere.
I think the obvious joke to go for anyone who Barcelona signs, because they don't know if they're actually going to play for them, are they? They might actually get signed for them.
That's just bloody ridiculous. It's 3 days to go, and they can't register those players. I mean, Lewandowski, they've done all these things, and it's like, well, no, because players aren't wanting to leave because they're owed wages. Frankie de Jong is owed 17 million by Barcelona. And yet they've not given him that, but they'll go and sign Lewandowski, put him on loads of wages. They'll go and sign Rafinha, loads of wages. But guess what? They can't sign them amongst other ones as well. They've signed other players as well, and it's ridiculous. They seem to be linked with everybody, but we know they don't have the money, so UEFA need to be investigating it.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that was one of them. Just everyone for Barca. Another one who I think will be a flop with Calvin Phillips. I just don't think it'd be like a Delph situation. I just don't think he'll play for Manchester City. And yeah, that's why I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's good enough for Man City. And finally, I'm going to go for Richarlison because he's already injured, and I just don't think they'll play him much, will they? Because they already have Kane and Son and the like. So I just don't see where he will fit in for Tottenham.
No, good shout. Good shout on that one. But I personally think he was an all right signing. Not the best, but all right. But I think he's there for backup, isn't he? He's to bolster bench. So obviously he's not going to overtake Song, Kane, and I'm going to even include Kulusevski in that. I don't think
of course.
Dethrone those three, especially on current form. If I'm going to say my worst three, I think who are we looking at? I feel like I'm going to say Rafinha to Barcelona. I feel that was a bad move. I know he wanted to go back, but I just think in general, I don't like that signing. I think especially because he could have gone to Arsenal or Chelsea, and chose to go to Barcelona, even though he couldn't potentially play for them. Do you know who I'm slightly worried about, because I think everyone's going to compare him to Rudiger, but Koulibaly for Chelsea.
Oh, interesting shout there.
I'm not convinced. Obviously, I've seen a bit of him play. I'm not convinced he's going to make it in the Premier League. Could be wrong. Played all right in his first game, but again, it was against an Everton front line without a recognised striker. So yeah, I think Koulibaly's one for me to watch.
And finally,
who else? I'm going to go for Lewandowski at Barcelona.
Oh,
I don't. Again, I'm not saying. And this is without the if they could register all the players. I just feel like there just seems to be a lack of ambition if you sign him for Barcelona at the moment. So it's not necessarily the worst signing. I have to question the players if they're signing for Barcelona at this point.
Yeah, it's a very scary time if you're a Barcelona fan. But these are just our opinions. If you have any other opinions on whatever we've spoken about today, the top three best, top three worst, we'd love to hear it, and we'd love to hear your predictions as well. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and obviously subscribe to us on YouTube. And anything else, Joe?
No, just keep looking out for more content on all the platforms mentioned, and we'll be back next week with another podcast talking about all this weekend's football, and hopefully talking to everyone here. Hopefully your team gets a win, whether it be in the lower leagues, Premier League, or wherever in the world you're listening from.
Unless you're a West Ham fan or a Brentford fan.
Exactly.
For our sake. Okay, guys, see you later.